everybody. Serge speaking for Profile Prague Internet and Radio, celebrating its 30th year of Prague. Today, I have the great pleasure to talk to Mr. Neal Morse, an incredible musician who has been offering us music for our heart and soul for 30 years also. Hello, Neal, and thank you very much for giving us time to answer our questions. First thing that strikes me is that many music lovers are still enjoying, if I may say, getting into the Restoration Joseph Part 2. Still, you did that in January. Still, here you are, new project, new band, new album. It seems you always add and still have so much creativity. Have you ever had a drought of musical idea?
Oh, well, yeah, sure. I have days where I don't come up with anything good. I can usually come up with things. It just is, it's questionable whether they're usable or not. But yeah, I'm really thankful that I feel like for this Resonance album there was definitely a fresh flow.
Fresh flow.
Yeah.
So, new album, new band. What is the idea behind the Resonance? Is it somehow related to the return of Mike Portnoy to the Dream Theater and less time he would have allowed to the Neal Morse band? Is that partially related, or is it something else?
Well, it was definitely related because one of the reasons why I started thinking about, well, what kind of different things should I be doing? What do I want to do in 2024? What can I do? Mike being back in DT is, a great thing, of course, for him and everybody else. And it's been a good year for me too, creatively. But I knew that obviously all the bands that I'm in pretty much are going to be on hiatus until he has more time, because he's really devoting himself to Dream Theater, which is totally appropriate. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I thought of, like, I just didn't want to make a solo album. I just made the two Joseph albums kind of by myself, it's in terms of writing anyway. So I just wasn't up for that. It was, those were such monumental tasks. Yeah, I wanted to kind of get more of a collaborative thing going and not like build an entire house myself kind of thing. And so then I was kicking it around with my wife, and she suggested, like, hey, what about doing something with some of these talented young guys that live locally?
Let's talk about those talented young musicians. I guess they're rejuvenating yourself.
Yeah, well, there was definitely a fresh excitement about it, and although they're pretty mellow guys, they're not like really hyper young guys, like but it was very positive, and I just felt like the Lord was with us, and the fresh anointing and fresh feeling, and the music was coming. When I was with them, it was coming, and when I wasn't with them, it was coming. We did a couple of exploratory writing sessions, and then I flew to Colorado, and it was on that plane ride that I was reading that book, and it said "No Hill for a Climber" in it, and I started singing "No Hill for a Climber," and it just felt so good to me. I started walking the aisles on the airplane, going, "No hill for a climber, no love for the one who can't be loved." I was just making stuff up. Da, 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 so far from the fire. The stuff I sang in the beginning was not what wound up being on the album. I was just kind of making things up on the airplane. But I knew that there was something there. Like, you can feel it when you get an idea, and it's like, oh, I think that could really be something great. And I could immediately hear it being a smaller thing and maybe a sad thing towards the beginning, and then a really triumphant thing towards the end, which is really unusual to find that in a lyric. So I'm just bringing that up to say, like, I knew that the wheels were turning, the baby was forming, and What a mystery it all is.
Yeah, singing in an airplane alley. Did you get applauded somehow?
Oh no, people are just looking around like, well, they don't look at you. You know, nobody looks at anybody because that would be really awkward.
Okay.
So they just, you know, they fidget, you know. I don't know. I mean, I was trying. The reason why I was walking is because I didn't want to, you know, annoy the people that were sitting next to me. I thought, you know, I was doing it as nicely as I could, you know.
Uh,
Um,
Talking
yeah. So,
about
but apparently that's not uncommon. I've heard a lot of singer songwriters and artists say that they get really good ideas on airplanes. So there you go.
well, I wish I would have been there. I would have applauded. Talking about vocals on the album, Noel for a Climber, you are sharing lead vocal duties like you do so many times. Joseph is another example with Johnny Bisaya, and I think Chris Riley, who also plays bass, also sing some leads. Can you tell me about those two guys?
Yeah, well, Chris plays more than bass. He's a multi instrumentalist, so he's playing some guitar and some keyboards on the album. There's certain sections of the album that are directly taken from his demos or his recordings, should I say. Um, in Eternity in Your Eyes, both the Northern Lights section and the Hammer and Nail section were written by Chris. And we liked so much that we flew the recordings into the master recording that we were working on, and then kept a lot of the stuff that was in there because it just sounded really cool, just like it was. In fact, I think his vocal is from his original recording. So he does all. Chris is a really amazing artist in and of himself, and yeah. So he's a really. If you want to know about Chris, um, he's kind of shy. He's very caring and very creative, and you can kind of tell that like right away. Um, he's not what you call a normal guy. You can tell right away. He's like, oh, okay, this guy has a lot of different stuff going on. You know, he's deep. He's deep water, and and then there's Johnny Basaha, who I met like right before the album was finished, and he came in right before the album was finished and sang all of his parts in 2 days. Johnny's the only one that I haven't known for a while. um, but he was just wonderful to work with and just knocked it out of the park. His vocals, I think it was amazing. I think Chris's vocals are really cool too, really interesting, quirky. I've often called Chris the Neil Young of Prague. You know, like he has a really interesting high voice, but not like normal. You wouldn't go like, oh wow, that what a great, you know, like he doesn't have a
Yeah.
lead singer voice. He has more of a voice with a lot of character and totally unique. I think Chris is totally unique. Johnny is as well, but Johnny has more of that soaring thing, which is what the album needed. I just feel like God brought in the perfect people to make this album.
Eric Gillette is an extraordinary guitar player, but I'm sure many people will discover and be amazed by Andre Madatian. How did you meet him, and was he the obvious choice for guitar playing?
Yeah, Andre was definitely uh, very, very at the front of my thinking when I was thinking about who to work on this album with. He had done a guitar solo on Joseph Part One on Heaven in Charge of Hell, and um, we've been floating in circles around each other for some years. I first met him maybe 10 years ago. Um, my wife and his wife are friends, and they've known each other for a while, and so Andre used to come play guitar in the church that I had started in Nashville, actually. That would have been around 2015 or something like that. So yeah, we've been around each other a lot, and I've always really liked his playing, and he's such a nice guy. He's also a music teacher and a uh, orchestra arranger and a writer. He writes for orchestra. Uh, he's an amazing guy. You'd really like him.
Uh, it seems you always surround yourself with great musicians. Uh, Drum duties. Philip Martin, Joe Ganzelli are both there. Uh,
Yes.
is there one more important to both have, or is it kind of really shared duties?
Well, what happened was Philip was doing the album, and we were working our way through it. And I had promised Inside Out, and I had asked everybody at the beginning, like, "Hey, here's the possible timeline. Do you think we can do this? Do you think, if we start really tracking in April, can we deliver to Rich in mid-May, and then deliver to Inside Out, say towards the end of June?" That was the timeline, and then we went on Cruise to the Edge in March with Flying Colors. And Philip Martin came along just to help us and to help us like set up and do technology stuff. And anyway, Steve Morse was so impressed with Philip that he hired him to go out and help him tech on the Dixie Dregs tour. So we start working on this album, and Philip says, "Hey, man, I just found out that I'm going to leave on the 14th to go on this tour with Steve Morse." And I'm like, "Well, congratulations. That's really great. But what are we going to do about drums on the record?" And I started going, I don't know. I didn't know. I was praying about it. And Andre said, "Hey, my friend Joe," who I had met at Andre's wedding. I met Joe some years before and really liked him. And anyway, he said that his friend Joe would love to fly down from DC and take a shot at some of the songs. And so I said, "Oh, okay, sure." Anyway, so yeah, Joe flew down on his own dime just to,
Oh,
kind of take a stab at it. And I had sent him just the MIDI files, I think, of Eternity in Your Eyes. And um, he played on most of that. The reason why he's not on all of it is because after he did his drum tracks, I had the grand idea that there should be a jam in the middle. So after he did his drums, I did a global edit and added that whole jam thing with the wah wah guitar solo, and then that kind of peaks out into the down chorus that Johnny sings, and then we go back into. It used to go straight from Northern Lights to Hammer and Nail. It used to be joined, but I felt like that's like Chris vocal and then little interlude and then Chris vocal like kind of back to back. I thought, it might be cool to add some space. And anyway, so I put that jam in there, and I did it all in really terrible sounding MIDI drums and just as a sketch. And then by that time, Philip was back from the tour. So Philip came in and played drums on that jam. So that's why if you notice, it says, Eternity in Your Eyes, they're both credited with track 1. And they're both credited with track 2 because they both played on Thief. But then I felt like almost like Donald Fagen from Steely Dan, kind of picking, they used to have Steely Dan used to have like 10 full bands come in of the best musicians in Los Angeles at that time. They'd have like 10 full bands come in and play a song like Asia or something. I talked to Michael Omardian about it. He's like, "Yeah, it was crazy." Sometimes I'd be in 2 different ones. They didn't always swap out everybody, but anyway. So yeah, it was kind of fun for me because I had Philip's drum track and Joe's drum track on Thief, and I spliced them up. And I was telling Nate, and you can't even tell because they were playing the drum kit that's here in the studio. My drum kit, essentially. Uh, it used to be Mike's, but I bought it. But anyway, so the drums sound the same. So you got two different drummers playing on Thief, but you would never know it.
Yeah,
Like,
exact. I saw the video. The video was just released today, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, yes. Did you like the video?
Yeah, yeah, quite a bit. Actually, it was only the second song I heard from the album, to be honest, because I had not had the chance to hear the rest. I had All the Rage and
Oh,
video, and this one. I can't wait to hear the rest,
oh,
since
so
especially since you're talking about it so much.
okay. So you have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay. Well, maybe by the time this interview is released, you'll know more about what I'm talking about.
Well, I saw the different titles and and all the different sections, though.
Yeah.
So I do relate to what you're saying, but I have not heard it.
Yeah.
Honestly, the quality. So from what I hear, the guys were pretty much involved during the recording and even before somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. We wrote quite a bit in the room. We wrote a lot of No Hill was written together. That was the one that was the most collaborative. Um, Eternity in Your Eyes was something that I it was a piece I was working on, and then as producer, one of the things that you do, and this is one of the things that Mike Portnoy is just amazing at, is you listen to everybody's demos and you glean out the best parts. And so I was listening to Andre's music and Chris's music, and that was kind of my idea to put Andre's orchestra piece at the beginning. There's a segment of Andre's orchestra piece that is what actually starts the album. That starts Eternity in Your Eyes, um, and then putting Chris Riley's segments in there and tying them all together. But we didn't really write together in the room. It's more like I took sections of other guys' music and put it together. But you can't really tell that either. If you could, that would be bad. Right?
Yes.
It only works if it's seamless.
Yes,
But
that
the song that we really wrote together was No Hill for a Climber. But we were together for a lot of this tracking because everybody lives locally. Um, Philip was out of town for 2 weeks, so he missed quite a bit. But like Chris would come over when Johnny was doing his vocals, or when Andre was doing guitars. There was the three of us working on that together, and there was a lot of stuff that we were together in the room for. We tracked All the Rage together in the room. Thief was done from, I had created, what would you call it, a template of Thief in the computer that everybody played to. But then when we got to that freak out point,
yeah.
the freak out thing was me and Philip. I was playing bass, and me and Philip just sort of improvised that thing, and all the other stuff was overdubbed over it. And if you notice, the bass sound right there totally changes because there was no way to recreate that original bass that I played in the room, because it's random, it's manic. And so the bass sound changes because on the rest of the song I had a different tone. But yeah, so there was a lot of stuff, really cool stuff that was done just spontaneously in the room, and I think it really shows on the album.
I will quote you. You said about the album, it has voices and playing styles and soundscapes that people will have never heard before. So that section you just described, is that part of the explanation, because you got such a big body of work. We heard a lot, and we love it. We love it. We heard a lot of Neal Morse, but to understand what you mean by that section would be part of it, and even more maybe.
Sure. Yeah, that was something I've never tried before. Rather than like the predictable thing that I would have done there, what I was thinking about doing was, you know, having us all play some sort of blistering thing together and stop thief and go back into thief, you know. I knew I wanted to do something really intense and stop and then go back to the beginning. And I thought, man, rather than write something and have it be organized, why don't we all just freak out? Let's just be so if slash when we ever play that live, it'll be different every night because you can't really plan that. You have to just kind of just do it, look at each other and stop. Which is what we did on the bass. And then the rest of the stuff you had to just kind of match it, you know, as you went. But in the computer, you know, of course you can cut things off and you can you can manipulate things a little bit more. But anyway, yeah, there's other things too. You know, it isn't just when you're making an album together, it isn't just the stuff that you do together. You're influenced by each other even when you're not together. Like because of who Chris Riley is and the stuff that he does and how creative he is, it's changed me. Like I was down in Florida. I can't remember when it was. I guess it would have been in May. I was down in Florida on a short vacation, and I was working on the very beginning of No Hill. And I had just gotten this new software, and I was exploring these sounds. But I actually created a bunch of the really weird stuff that's at the beginning of No Hill. Like I found that weird, that sounds like some Tibetan yodeling or something. I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. Let's do like 4 tracks of that, you know, and let's detune them, you know, that because I feel like I was sort of like, you know, thinking, what would Chris do? So yeah, we've all been good influences on each other, I think.
You said if we tour, did it cross your mind to go on the road with the guys?
Well, you know, we haven't really talked about it, which is kind of surprising. We've all been busy. I'm like really busy because I've got these 3 Morse fests coming up, you know, doing both Joseph albums and Jesus Christ the Exorcist. It's like so much music. And a debut set of the trio that's I've never played, you know. But the trio music is a lot easier. It's just a lot of music to get in your head. And so that mine kind of like, I can't think about anything else until all that stuff's over. I also started an album with over the summer with Chester Thompson. And so I need to finish my parts on that. And so when all this stuff is kind of done and the holidays are done, then I'll be able to think about maybe playing live again.
Three Morse Fest. Whoops, 3 Morse Fest.
Yes.
Is that your idea or someone else proposed you that? Because you still have USA, of course. You're doing London and Netherlands. Why not Canada? No, but seriously,
Yeah. Love to.
Oh,
well, I mean, I want to be totally honest about this. I don't know how much sense. I mean, I don't know how much sense it makes financially, business-wise, to do it. And that was not my motivation. It was something I felt in prayer. I felt like we should do all 3. I felt like it was important to the Lord. So that's why we're doing it. And the last ones were so good. They were such a blessing. It's like, you know, I think we want to, you know, if something's really blessed and people are receiving, you want to keep doing it. So that's my answer to that.
Will it be the same lineup and the same set list, or are there some movements?
It's going to be the same set list and the same lineup because, you know, I think it would be too difficult, especially, you know, I thought about trying to do something different in London, but I don't think we'll have time to rehearse anything. Maybe we'll see if we can throw something different in. I don't know. There might be a surprise here or there.
We know that Noel for a Climber will be available on November the 8th on vinyl, CD, and digital. Morse Fest will take place in November and
Yes.
January. Uh, do you surely after January 2025, do you have a little something in your mind because it seems you never rest? Uh, or is it or is it a blank page for now?
Well, what the thing that I do have is this Chester Thompson Phil Keaggy album that'll be coming out in the spring, and I think that's going to be really, really good too. So I'm very excited about that. But other than that, I'm not sure what 2025 has in store. But at this time last year, I wasn't sure what 2024 had in store, and it had plenty, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'm sure it'll be good.
Yeah. All right. A few quick but maybe difficult questions for you.
Okay.
Three favorite musician, prog or not?
Three favorite musicians. Wow. Prog or no? Whew. Wow. Well, I mean, of new people, I really like John Mayer a lot. Uh, I like it. I like his subtlety, and I really enjoy his voice, and his songwriting is really quality. Um, and I like his jamming spirit. Like he goes and plays with the Grateful Dead group that's going around, and I don't know. He's just a cool guy. Uh, Yeah, well, I mean, I have to pick a Beatle, so I guess it would be Paul McCartney. Um, but I mean, can I pick people that aren't alive? I might pick John.
You
I mean,
can pick whoever you want.
because I love them both, and I'd probably pick Peter Gabriel as one. I just love there's a feeling. Music is so much about the feeling that you get the person from the person's heart, really. And I was able to go with Mike Portnoy actually to go see Peter Gabriel last year, and it was just a really great heartfelt experience, and so he'd be one.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky also to see him on my birthday. That was the
Oh,
first time I ever had a show on my birthday. So,
oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah,
yeah, it was.
yeah,
Uh,
great. Yeah.
Second difficult one. Three favorite albums, prog or no?
Oh, wow. Well, okay, I'll pick one pop, one Beatles. Uh, I'd say the White Album, even with all the crazy weird things. I just love the punch of it. The White Album's got a special sound to it. In Jeff Emmerich's book, the Here, There, and Everywhere, he's the guy who engineered the White Album or much of it, not all of it, because Ken Scott I think came in and did a lot of it, but he said that was right before they changed all the gear at Abbey Road. And he said the new gear, he was never able to get the same punch out of it that he was able to get on the White Album. And if you listen to like the White Album and Abbey Road, you can hear what he's talking about.
Agree.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the White Album and well, let's take a Genesis album. Man, Lamb Lies Down or Selling England or Foxtrot. Oh my goodness, I don't know. I guess I'll take Selling England. Um, and then maybe a more current kind of pop album. I love John Mayer's Born and Raised. I think maybe I was out for a second and came back
For
in.
a second, but you came back. That's good.
Anyway, I guess I'd take John Mayer's Born and Raised for my kind of more normal singer songwriter pop album.
And my last difficult one. A
Yeah.
musician you would love to work with now. And beside Chester Thompson, because you're doing it. Another one.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd love to do something with lots of people, really. I mean, lots of people. Oh, my goodness. I mean, if I had the opportunity, I'd love to do something with the guys in Dirty Loops. You know, those guys are amazing. Um, Steve Hackett. You know, I'd love to make a record with Steve Hackett. You know, or Peter Gabriel, or you know, any of my heroes. You know, I would love that. Yeah, who else? Um, yeah, sometimes you know, on Cruise to the Edge or something, I'll wander around and go like, oh wow, it'd be great to do something with that guy. Yeah, there's so many good musicians, so many great people out there. You know. Anyway, my mind's going a little bit blank, but yeah, love to.
Yeah, only 365 days in a year to do all that.
Yeah, yeah,
Neal, thank you so very, very much for your beautiful music you're
thank
making
you.
and the positive vibrations we can feel during your shows. The last words are for you, my friend.
Hey, something I'm really excited about is that Waterfall version 2 came out this week. So my streaming app Waterfall has been upgraded, and it looks nicer. It's got more features, and you can listen to everything that I've ever done with anyone practically is on there, and you can listen to it on the mountaintop or at the beach or anywhere. And streaming is so convenient; you don't have to look around for stuff, which I really appreciate. All just on your phone, man. It's so great. Anyway, waterfallstreaming.com. Go to waterfallstreaming.com and get the Waterfall app. That'd be great.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.